Welcome back. Okay, so hopefully you took a breath, took a minute, got a snack if you needed one. Whatever it is you needed to do, took a 5-minute brain break, stared at the wall for a little bit. I'm doing a little bit of that lately, tell you guys. So we just sort of took our journey to understanding what Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is, what it has to do with alleles, what it has to do with genotypes. And so now we're gonna work through a Hardy-Weinberg problem. So here's our imaginary population. Our imaginary population is made up of things called quarks, and in our imaginary population, quarks can have green mohawks or quarks can have pink mohawks. The green allele is dominant to the pink allele, and as is the I want to say tradition, that's not the right word. In genetics, we name after the recessive allele, or we use a designation. Our letter is after the recessive allele. The pink allele is recessive, so capital P represents our dominant allele. In a population, we have 500 quarks. We know that 16 of these 500 quarks have a pink mohawk. This is the information we're given. The problem wants you to find the frequency of the green allele, the pink allele, and the genotype frequencies. At first glance, this may feel like, what? You've given me nothing. You've given me how big the population is and how many have pink mohawk. What? I swear it's actually really easy. Pretty much plug and chug. So we're going to work through how we do this. First thing we need to do is which allele is our P and which allele is our Q. So P is usually our dominant allele. If there is a dominant allele, it's always P. So P is green, Q is pink, right? We start there. We label our alleles, which is P and which is Q. From our problem, we're given a critical piece of information, and in pretty much any Hardy-Weinberg problem, you're going to be given this piece of information. We're told how many pink individuals we have. We're told about our recessive genus or our recessive phenotype. We're given that information. You'll almost always be given that information because you have to have it to work the problem. So we know that we have 16 quarks with a pink mohawk. This is recessive. We know pink is recessive. If these individuals have a phenotype, they're demonstrating this recessive trait, then we know they have to be homozygous Q. We also know that there are 500 total quarks. Well, what do we do with this information? We take our 16 individuals out of our 500 individuals and we get what's our rate, what's our frequency of pink individuals in this population. Well, our frequency is 0.032. So what this is, guys, is our Q squared, right? This is how many individuals are homozygous recessive. 0.032, that's our Q squared. Just from knowing how many individuals in the population are expressing that recessive trait, we get our Q squared from our Hardy-Weinberg problem. Okay, cool. Puzzle piece slips into place. Well, that's nice, but we also need the P if we want to figure out genotype frequencies. And the problem also asked us, what is the frequency of the green allele? What is the frequency of the pink allele? How do we do that? Simple math. We take our Q squared, square root that sucker, and that gives us Q. If you guys go back to the thing that I told you in the last video, P plus Q always equals 1. So we know 2 parts of the equation. If we know 2 parts of the equation, we can always get the third part, right? That's basic math. So if P plus Q always equals 1, then we know P plus 0.18 equals 1. We subtract the 0.18, because remember, we got 0.18 from taking the square root of 0.032. That's our Q. P plus 0.18 has to equal 1, because P plus Q has to equal 1. Then all we do is we just subtract our 0.18 from both sides. We get our P. Now we know P equals 0.082. Boom. Green allele frequency is 0.82. Pink allele frequency is 0.18. The next part of the question asks us for the genotypic frequency. Plug and chug, my friends. That's all we got to do. So we take our Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, our Hardy-Weinberg equation. We just plug in our P's and Q's. That's it. That's all we have to do. Once we figure out our P and we figure out our Q, all we got to do is plug and chug. So we're sticking in our 0.82 squared. We're sticking in our 0.82 for our P in our heterozygotes. We're sticking in our 0.18 for our Q in our heterozygotes. And then we're squaring our 0.18 for our homozygous recessive individuals. Just some math. And then this gives us our ratios of each of our genotypes, because remember that P squared, what color should I use? These are our homozygous dominants, right? So the ratio of our homozygous, or the frequency of our homozygous dominant individuals is 0.672. Then 2PQ, that's our heterozygotes, right? Right here, 0.295. And then these are our homozygous recessives. And that's going to be right here. And then we already figured out our allelic frequencies. Those are down here. And a way to double check yourself is the genotypic frequencies are also going to have to equal 1. So check yourself that way. There can be a little bit of a rounding. So sometimes that'll be like 0.99 or 0.98 if you've rounded a little bit differently. So all we had to do was some subtraction, square root a thing, which you either have a calculator that can do that. Every smartphone can do that. And when we figured this problem out. So if you come up against a Hardy-Weinberg problem and you're like, I don't have anywhere near enough information to solve this, remember this problem that we just worked through that was actually really pretty easy. So what are our steps? Our steps are label our alleles. Which one's P and which one's Q? Find Q. You will always, I can't imagine a Hardy-Weinberg problem where you will not be given the recessive phenotype or the recessive phenotype frequency. Then find P, and then you find P squared, 2PQ, and Q squared. So you label your alleles, find your allelic frequencies, find your genotypic frequencies. I'm going to give you a couple of practice problems, and I will post the solutions for these. Let me think. What is today? Okay. So I'll post the solutions for these in a couple of days, probably towards the end of the week. Thursday would probably be a good day to do that. So in dwarves, the allele for black tongue is recessive. In a population of 800 dwarves, 25 have black tongues. So you've been given which allele is recessive. You've also been given how many individuals in the population have that recessive allele. So that's where you start. And you're asked what percentage of the population has black tongues, what are the frequencies of the dominant and recessive alleles, and what percentage of the population are heterozygous for this trait. Another one, this is actually a real mutation, the Delta 32 mutation. It's recessive, gives humans protection from HIV infection. The frequency of this allele in a certain town is 20%. Okay, so you're given an allele frequency here. So you're going to work it just a little bit differently, but you're still given the recessive allele frequency. What percentage of the population is homozygous, and what percentage is not immune but capable of having children who are immune? So think about what genotype would individuals have that are capable of having children who are immune. Last little note about Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is, as I've mentioned several times, the assumptions in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium are that there is no selection, no mutation, no migration. We haven't talked about migration yet, but migration would be introducing potentially new alleles into a population, right? If you have one interbreeding gene pool and you introduce new alleles, or you introduce individuals that are carrying different, or change the genotypic frequency, right? That can change. And you've got to have a large interbreeding population, and the individuals in that population don't prefer some individuals more than others. So no selection, no mutation, no migration, large population, random mating. Random mating, I think, fits in with no selection because that would be sexual selection, but a lot of people like to point that one out specifically. So remember that Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is the null model. That's why it's useful to us. Okay, awesome, guys. You guys work on those practice problems. I will post solutions for those a little bit later in the week, and I will see you back here next time.